All right, so I made some garlic butter steak lettuce boats. I used a ribeye T-bone steak and I cut it up. This was the steak. Yes, it looked real good, but I cut it up and I had to go pretty fast on this or expedite it because I was struggling at first. It was just hard trying to take this little meat, that little fat stuff off the thing. I'm like, Jesus Christmas. So once I have everything cut, as y'all can see, I'm cutting it and putting it into a bowl because, you know, baby, you got to season your food. If you don't season your food, you can't even sit with me for real. So once I seasoned everything, got everything seasoned and got the meat off of the bone, as y'all can see, I'm going to get my hot little $24 worth. So I went on ahead and cut everything up, and then I cut it into little pieces after that as well. But I cut my meat up real good. I took all the meat off each of it. Like this one had a bone in, as y'all can see on the package. So I want them a little big because I want them a little thick. So this is why I decided to pick this particular meat. And as y'all can see, my plate was shifting to the other side. So I was trying to keep the food in the picture. I mean, in the camera, but it was a whole thing. As y'all can see, I'm pulling stuff apart. I'm taking off fat. It's a whole thing, y'all. So I cut the meat, made sure the meat was cut up, and it was in the bowl. So putting all the meat in the bowl, and I'm just cutting, like, y'all, I'm like really literally cutting each of them like up and making sure all my meat is situated. So as y'all can see, that's the bone right there. It's gone, y'all. I made sure all that meat was off. I took off every little bit of piece of meat I could. Baby, I took it off. It's the inflation, money looking a little funny. I'm just playing. But there's the meat in the bowl. Then I put it back on there, and then some of the big pieces, I put it back on a plate, but some of the big pieces I just cut up to make sure that everybody had enough because I did like 2 lettuce bolts a person, which was me, my boyfriend, and my daughter. So once it was in there, we used a little bit of seasoning. So I first started off with my onion powder, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm sorry, garlic powder. Once I did the garlic powder, you know I got to hit it with a little bit of Old Bay. I love Old Bay. I really cook with Old Bay for real. Then I did a little bit of adobo, and then I did some lemon pepper. So once I did all that, I used my hands and I just got in the, and I think I was in the cabinet looking for the other seasoning because I did add Sazon in here as well. And I did a little bit of complete seasoning as well. So once all those was in there, I made sure, once I did this with my hands, I was like, oh no, let me put some little Sazon in there. So I did a little bit more Sazon, a little bit of more seasoning. So once my pan got hot, I put the steak, cut up piece of steak in the oil. This did cook kind of fast, so you do kind of got to watch it. And I flipped them over, but I was able to put all the steak in the bowl in one pan. So once that was in that pan, I then just centered it around the whole pan and I just let it cook. I let it simmer for a little bit before I actually flipped it over. So this is me now flipping it over once it's been in the pan for a little bit. As y'all can see, it's already starting to brown. So that was a plus in itself. So I flipped everything over, got everything flipped over. And then, like I said, I just let it sit there and let it do what it's gonna do. I didn't make it like medium well because my daughter was eating it and she doesn't eat medium well meat as of yet. So I made sure the meat was done, and marinated. It was so good, y'all. So then this is the lettuce here. I rinsed it off. I cut off the butt of the lettuce and then I separate them on our plates. As you can see how like the biggest one to the smallest one, they were falling apart as we ate them, but it was cool because it was good. This made it for Phil. So now I'm doing the sauce. As you can see in the back, the steak is browning. It's getting good. So I used my butter and drink check. I always gotta have a glass of drink, wine or whatever when I cook, because you know that's what we do. So I'm turning the meat over, getting the meat turned over because I don't want it black or I don't want to burn it. So I was really checking it as I was doing it. I do use olive oil when I cook. I just love, olive oil in itself. So now I'm doing the sauce. So this sauce entails butter, which is the bougie butter people be talking about. This butter kind of got me in the chokehold. I love it. But I waited till the butter melted, and then I put some A1 sauce in the pan. So once the A1 sauce was in there, be careful with the A1 sauce because it'll kind of take over, you got to put a lot of honey in it. So I put a lot of honey in it, y'all. This ain't even nothing compared to how much honey I put in it. And then I use a garlic herb seasoning to go inside. So I put that in there. I put a lot in there, actually. Like, it was seasoned, the sauce was seasoned really good. And then once I did that, I used a little bit of, there we go. Hold on, got to put a little bit more seasoning in there. And then as you can see, the butter is melting. So once I did that, I used some lemon juice. And I think I poured too much lemon juice in there. Yeah, that's too much. I should have poured just a little squirt. And then you just mix it around and just let it simmer. Like, cook it on like 2 or 3 so it can get like low. But as you can see, it was kind of like watery. So I put some more honey in it so it can be like, I wanted it to be like a paste, not pasty, but not as oily. So once I did that, it was time to put the bougie butter in with the steak and put a little bit of minced garlic in there, because y'all gonna see it's gonna make it like real tender and real juicy. Then I took some Italian seasoning and seasoned the top of that with some Italian seasoning. Then after I did that, I just stirred that around and let that cook for a little bit until the butter completely melted. And I made sure all the pieces were turned over. If they weren't turned over, I flipped them over. Like, they need to be flipped over, but I wanted that butter to melt and that to like all the flavor to get in it. Once I did that, y'all see that sauce melting or whatever, I cut up some onions and put the onions in the same oil that I put the chicken in. So I mean the steak in. So I took the steak out and put onions in, and I let these onions like simmer to perfection, right? So I did take the sauce and put it on the boats first. As you can see, one of those leaves are like broken. So I put the steak on there as well. And then once the steak was on there, I was waiting on the onions to like finish. It took like a minute for the onions to like get, because I don't eat onions like that. So I like them to be sauteed. But as y'all can see, the onions was like sauteed on there. Y'all see my drink. So once I got the onion sauteed on there, and I put them on everybody's plate. Like I said, there's 3 plates. I'm actually plating. I put some more sauce on after the onions were placed on there. And then I used 2 different cheeses. I used like a taco blend cheese that I thought was going to be good. And boom, this the final product. So it was the cheese on top with a little bit of more sauce on. That's what it looks like on my plate. And then here's my reaction.
Baby, you made it. So go ahead and get the first 2.
I tried the onion.
I take the picture of it too, Mommy. Is this a good one? Mr.